Is your kindness perceived as weakness? Are you deathly tired of being accommodating, understandable, and ultimately invisible? Do you give your entire soul only to receive a wall of polite indifference in return? And is a quiet, polite anger growing inside you that you're afraid to show even yourself? Popular psychology offers you a cheap trick. Put on the bad girl mask. But that is a lie. The mask will always crack, revealing not power, but fear. To understand the true nature of power and attraction, we must look into the darkest and most forbidden corners of the soul. A place where good girls are forbidden to enter. It is there that Carl Jung discovered our most powerful and repressed resource, the shadow archetype. Over the next hour, we won't just analyze 5 phrases, we will perform alchemical work. You will understand why your good girl strategy is doomed to fail. You will learn what task your soul is setting for you through this pain. And most importantly, you will see the path to awakening the part of you that is impossible to ignore. The part you don't need to chase, because it is the center of gravity itself. If you are ready to meet your true power, our immersion into the shadow begins right now. Let's talk about that silence, about that pause after your words that lasts a little longer than it should, about his gaze that slides right through you, like through glass, stopping on the wall behind your back. You are sitting opposite him, and you are flawless. You are beautiful, smart. You cook dinner. You remember his mother's name and his dog's birthday. You are a perfect picture, painted for other people's eyes. But the picture doesn't breathe. It has no voice, no desires. And you feel how your genuine life force, your spontaneity, your healthy, wild aggression, your right to chaos, all of this is neatly packed into a small, polite suitcase that you are afraid to open even when you are alone. In this suitcase lie all your inconvenient thoughts, all your selfish desires, all your too loud no's. You have learned to smile while holding it, and this suitcase gets heavier every day. You carry it with you everywhere, and its weight echoes as pain in your shoulders and fatigue in your eyes. You have become the guardian of an ideal facade, but behind that facade is emptiness, scorched earth where your wild nature once grew. This is the price for being good. And I want you to hear the main thing. This is not your fault. You were taught this. It is an unwritten social contract handed to a girl along with her birth certificate. To smile when it hurts, to be silent when you want to scream, to smooth out the rough edges, to be the guardian of someone else's comfort, often at the cost of your own. You are playing the role that was handed to you, and, admittedly, you play it brilliantly. You have become a master of self-control, a virtuoso of predictability. But the soul cannot live by someone else's script forever. It rebels. It suffocates in this perfect yet airless room. And the pain you feel is not a sign of your weakness. It is not the crack of your broken soul. It is the roar of the prison gates that can no longer hold back your power. It is your genuine, wild nature knocking from within, demanding to finally be set free. Your pain is proof that you are still alive, and that your power is immense. What if I tell you that your desire to break him is not about him? It is not a desire to destroy the man. What if it is a desperate, sacred cry of your soul, wanting to break not his will, but your own chains? To break the invisible cage of the good girl in which you are suffocating. To break that toxic pattern where your love turns into a service and your care into an obligation. To break that false, humiliating dynamic where you are a function, not a person, and then the bad girl phrases stop being a weapon of revenge. They become something else. Not manipulation, but surgical tools for opening up abscesses. Not tricks, but keys to your own wholeness. To the part of you that doesn't ask for permission, but declares it's right. That doesn't wait to be chosen, but acts from the center of its own will. That doesn't hope for a miracle, but knows its worth. To the woman inside you who does not seek reflection in his eyes, because she herself is the source of light. And to understand how these keys really work, we must first destroy the myths about femininity and power that hold us captive. It is useless to hold a bunch of lockpicks without understanding the mechanism of the lock that has become our prison. Therefore, before we move on to the phrases, we will do something more important. We must dissect the very idea of the good girl, put it under a microscope, and see why this construct is so fatally toxic. Toxic to the woman who pays for it with her life force, her spontaneity, her voice, and no less toxic to the man next to her who, without realizing it, gets trapped in an infantile and lifeless dynamic. This will be a cold, sober analysis, but without it, no genuine liberation is possible. Let's start this surgical work. So when a woman feels powerless, what does the chorus of voices from outside advise her? The internet whispers, glossy magazines shout, be more mysterious. Make him jealous. Don't reply to messages right away. Show that you have other options. We are offered an entire arsenal of tactical tricks, behavioral ploys that are supposed to magically turn the tables. But all this advice is nothing more than an attempt to treat a deep, infected wound of the soul with a pretty band-aid. They deal with behavior, ignoring the source. They change your tactics without changing your essence. These are external actions and imitation of strength. You put a bad girl mask on a good girl's face. You play the role of a predator, but your inner energy continues to broadcast the anxiety of a victim. This is a one-woman show where you desperately try to project strength, but the man subconsciously senses this dissonance. He sees not a queen, but a servant wearing a cardboard crown. And what does this evoke in him? Not respect, not genuine attraction to your personality. It evokes only the primitive excitement of the hunter. The game of catch me if you can be fun, but it always ends. As soon as the prey is caught, as soon as he sees that behind the mask of indifference hides the same desperate need for his approval, the excitement fades. And you are left where you were, only more exhausted and disappointed. It is a game that evokes not admiration, but only temporary interest. It is a path to nowhere, built on self-deception. You are fighting the symptoms while the disease continues to destroy you from within. All these superficial methods are doomed to fail because they fight the smoke, ignoring the source of the fire. They try to change the melody without understanding that the instrument itself is out of tune. To see the true picture, we need a different metaphor. Imagine that your soul is a vast, bottomless reservoir of water, an ocean, and your good girl personality is a massive concrete dam that you have built throughout your life. This dam serves one function: to control the flow. It allows the water to flow out only in a thin, predictable, socially acceptable trickle. This is a trickle of politeness, care, understanding, compromise. It is safe. It neither frightens nor floods anyone. But behind this dam is not a stream. Behind it is the ocean of your true nature. The storms of your repressed rage are raging there. The deep-sea monsters of your primal passion live there. The currents of your unyielding ambitions, your right to say no, your desire to be first, your sacred wildness are hidden there. This is not darkness. This is your untouched, concentrated life force that you deem dangerous and locked away. And when the pressure of this ocean becomes unbearable, the dam begins to crack. Your desire to break him, your sudden flare of irritation, your feeling of powerlessness are nothing but the sound of that cracking. It is a geological tremor at the foundation of your personality, where the repressed ocean is seeking an exit to freedom. It is a symptom, and the cause is the very existence of this dam, the very fact that you have cut yourself off from 99% of your power. Trying to manipulate with phrases, to be mysterious, is like frantically patching those cracks with cosmetic repairs while a fracture grows at the base of the dam. Our task is not to fix the dam. Our task is to learn how to consciously and safely open the floodgates and manage the full power of your inner ocean, directing its energy not toward destruction, but toward the creation of your own authentic life. This may sound abstract, like a beautiful theory, but I want to prove to you that this ocean exists inside you right now, this very second, and we can hear its roar together. Now, I want to ask you to do something important, something simple, yet perhaps the most significant thing you will do today. Please pause this video and remember the last time you felt a pang of anger or irritation, but instead you smiled and said, "It's fine," or "Don't worry," or just remain silent. Don't just remember, go back to that moment. Feel it in your body, the tension in your jaw, the lump in your throat, the heaviness in your chest. And now ask yourself with absolute honesty, with the frankness you are only capable of when you are alone with yourself. What exactly did you really want to say? What was your no that was swallowed? What desire, what need, what boundary did you betray in that moment to maintain the illusion of peace? What small part of yourself did you kill with your politeness? That buried impulse, that silent scream in the depth of your being, is the pure, unrefined ore of your true power. It is the voice of your soul that you silenced. It is the energy of your inner ocean, seeking a crack in the dam. Do not skip this moment. Do it now. Really, meet that buried voice. This is the first and most important step. We will wait. What you just felt, that buried impulse, that silent scream has a name. You are not the first to discover this secret, turbulent continent within yourself. The great cartographer of the soul, the Swiss psychiatrist Carl Gustav Jung, mapped it out over 100 years ago, and he gave it a name, the shadow. And the first thing we must understand is, the shadow is not evil. The shadow is not a dump of our vices. It is the treasury of our unrealized potential. It is all those parts of us that we deemed unacceptable, inconvenient, unfeminine, and hid from the world, and most importantly from ourselves, in the darkest basement of our psyche. For the good girl, her healthy aggression, her sovereign sexuality, her sacred selfishness, her right to anger, her thirst for power, become the shadow. She amputates these vitally important qualities, considering them bad, dangerous, repellent. But by cutting them off, she also cuts off her life force. She becomes a two-dimensional portrait of herself, pale, predictable, understandable, and completely safe. And safety is the opposite of attraction. Safety does not excite. Safety does not make a man grow. Safety lulls to sleep. True, deep attraction is born at the boundary of the predictable and the wild. And it is precisely in this shadow, in this treasury of rejected qualities, in this wild forest of the soul, that those very phrases that drive men crazy are born. They are not made up. They are not memorized. They are liberated when a woman finally finds the courage to enter her own dark forest and become acquainted with her true power. So what does it mean in practice to meet your shadow? Imagine for a moment that your soul is an entire kingdom. Integrating the shadow does not mean becoming bad. It means becoming whole. In this kingdom, the good girl is a queen who rules only its central, well-lit square. Her world is paved paths of politeness, neat lawns of social norms, and predictable fountains of approval. She rules wisely, but her reign is based on fear. She is afraid to enter the dark, wild forest that begins immediately beyond the borders of her manicured world. She was told since childhood that monsters live in this forest, that it is dangerous, dirty, and barbaric, and she believed it. She fenced herself off from it with a wall of denial. But it is in this forest, in her shadow, that all the treasures of her kingdom are contained. Her strongest beasts live there, the wolves of her instincts, which can protect her boundaries better than any army, the dragons of her ambitions, capable of carrying her to the highest goals, the bears of her maternal fury, ready to tear apart anyone who threatens her children or her cause. The most healing herbs of her hidden talents, which she deemed useless, grow there. The purest springs of her primal life force, her sexuality, her creative energy, which she deemed indecent, flow there. To integrate the shadow means for this queen to muster unimaginable courage, open the gate in the wall, and enter her own forest. She goes there not with a sword to kill, but with respect to become acquainted. She learns to speak the language of her beasts, understand their needs, feed them, not starve them. She does not try to destroy them, she earns their loyalty. A true queen is not afraid of her dragons, she harnesses them to her chariot. And when she returns to her central square, she is different. Her power no longer rests on the fragile approval of courtiers. It relies on the indestructible loyalty of her wild beasts. She becomes the ruler not only of the square, but of the entire kingdom, both light and darkness. Her power becomes genuine, absolute. And here is the main thing. A man meeting such a woman queen subconsciously feels this. He feels that she owns her entire world. She does not look for a missing part of herself in him because she has no missing parts. She herself is a completed universe, full of both light and mysterious darkness. And this is the highest, most mature, and magnetic form of attraction. This idea of the queen in her dark forest may seem grand, but how does it manifest in ordinary life, within the four walls of a typical apartment? Let's look at the story of Amanda and Jake. Amanda was the embodiment of care. Her love was a masterpiece of foresight. She adjusted her schedule to Jake's, cooked his favorite dishes, remembering the exact amount of salt he liked. She knew the names of all his colleagues and was friends with his friends, even the ones she didn't like. She was the ideal good girl, a quiet haven where he returned after the storms of the outside world. But Jake, being in this haven, became increasingly passive and detached. He took her care for granted, like air, which you only notice when it's missing. Their evenings turned into a quiet ritual. Dinner, television, a polite kiss goodnight. Amanda felt like she was turning into a ghost in her own home. One evening after Jake canceled their date once again for a meeting with friends, something inside Amanda didn't scream, but quietly clicked. It wasn't rage, but a cold, crystalline fatigue. She didn't cry or send him an angry message. Instead, she sat down at her laptop and opened a tab she had been keeping for months. Beginner Argentine Tango Course. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. She paid for the entire course in advance. She didn't ask his permission. She didn't warn him. She simply disappeared from his predictable evening map. When she returned home after midnight, Jake was sitting on the couch, annoyed and confused. But it wasn't his accommodating, guilty Amanda who appeared in the doorway. A stranger walked into the apartment, with messy hair, flushed, with glowing eyes that held not resentment, but excitement. She smelled of foreign perfume, the light men's cologne of her dance partner, and her own energy. She didn't apologize. She only tossed over her shoulder, "I'm horribly hungry," and walked into the kitchen, leaving him alone in the silence. In that moment, Jake truly saw her for the first time in months. Everything woke up in him at once, a pang of jealousy, curiosity, anxiety, and, to his own surprise, huge admiration. Her spontaneous, selfish act, her shadow, didn't push him away. On the contrary, it broke the glass wall through which he had been looking at her. He saw not a function, but a living, separate woman with her own world, her own passions, her own mystery. And he desperately wanted to be a part of that world. That evening, it wasn't the woman who served him who returned home, but the woman who lived, and that scent of her separate, sovereign life was more intoxicating to him than any perfume. And if you think this is just a beautiful story, you are mistaken. It is an accurate X-ray of your soul and your relationship. That Amanda is you, and her Argentine tango is your own forbidden forest. It is the book you dream of writing but postpone because there is no time. It is the solo vacation you are afraid to take because he will miss me. It is the course you don't sign up for because the money is needed more for something else. Every time you suppress your "I want" in favor of "it will be better for him," you betray your inner Amanda. You lock her in the house, forcing her to wash the dishes over and over again while her soul yearns to dance. And here is why this leads to disaster. Carl Jung would explain it this way. A man being next to a good girl unconsciously projects the image of his mother onto her. More precisely, the infantile aspect of his anima, his inner feminine image. He doesn't see you, the real woman. He sees a function. He expects unconditional care, acceptance, a warm dinner, and a quiet haven from you, remaining in the psychological position of a son. You try to be the ideal woman for him, not understanding that he is unconsciously looking for the ideal mother in you. And you don't leave a mother for another woman, you leave a mother for adult life. Or you stay with her forever in the role of the eternal boy. But when a woman, like Amanda, commits an act of sacred selfishness when she chooses her tango, not his comfort, she does something incredible. She breaks that projection. She rips off the maternal apron in one movement and appears before him in a tango dress. She stops being mommy. She becomes an equal, sometimes dangerous, always unpredictable. She becomes the other. And this forces the man to step out of the role of a son and become a man. He can no longer take her for granted. He has to win back her attention, compete with her interests, grow to match her new, whole energy. And here we come to the very essence. This is what breaking him really means. Not breaking his personality, but his infantile projection onto you. Breaking the paralyzing mother-son dynamic and forcing him to mature next to you. This is not an act of aggression. It is an act of ultimate love for yourself and for him. Now that we see the hidden mechanics, it's time to find the main lever in your own soul. And for that, we need to light a lantern and enter your personal dark forest together. Let's take a deep breath. And now I want to ask you, perhaps the most important question of our entire journey today. What quality that you are accustomed to considering bad, selfish, or unfeminine in yourself is actually your hidden, untapped power? Think about it. Maybe it's your anger, which you are so afraid of and suppress. What if it is not a destructive force, but a sacred fire given to you to protect your boundaries? What if your anger is your most faithful guard, who is simply tired of being chained and is desperately barking when someone invades your territory? Maybe it's your directness, which you hide behind polite hints and which others call sharpness. What if it is not a lack of tact, but the surgical scalpel of truth, your innate allergy to lies and ambiguity? You are trying to heal with the slow poison of hints where your nature demands one clean, healing incision. Or your desire to be alone, which you consider selfishness and betrayal towards your partner. What if it is not an escape from intimacy, but a vital need of your soul to connect to its inner power source? You are trying to water him from an almost empty jug instead of going to your own well and filling up to the brim. Write in the comments which shadow trait of yours you are ready to start accepting and exploring. And I ask you to do this not for me and not for the algorithms. Do it for yourself. Let this be your first act of acknowledgement, your first declaration of independence from the good girl role. Let this be your first treaty with your own shadow, signed publicly. And then, do something else. Read what others are writing, and you will see a miracle. You will see that your dark forest is inhabited by the same beautiful, strong beasts as the forests of hundreds of other women. You will feel enormous relief and unity, realizing that what you were ashamed of is a source of strength for another. Let's create here, in this space below the video, what we lack so much in the real world. A space where being bad means being whole. When you look at your shadow in the comments, you see not only what you have been suppressing, you see the raw material for your greatest creation. In ancient times, this was called the great work, the alchemy of the soul. And here we make the final, most important reversal in perception. Your feeling of powerlessness is not a curse. It is your most faithful and ruthless teacher. It, like a compass needle, may tremble and cause pain, but it unfailingly points to the single point on the map of your soul that requires integration and attention. Your pain is a navigation system leading you home to yourself. In the mystical language of alchemy, there was a process of turning lead into gold. Your pain, your humiliation, your jealousy is the lead. And the greatest mistake you can make is to try to get rid of it, throw it away, pretend it doesn't exist. The alchemist did not hate lead. He saw dormant gold in it. He understood that without this heavy, dark base metal, no transformation was possible. You don't need to get rid of your lead. You need to start the transformation process. Every humiliation you swallowed with a smile is raw material. Every resentment you buried under a layer of "I understand everything" is raw material. Every moment you were ignored and you pretended you didn't care is raw material. All this heaviness, all this darkness are necessary ingredients for creating your gold. And your gold is your indestructible self-worth. It is that inner knowledge of your value that does not depend on someone else's gaze, does not require confirmation, and cannot be taken away. It is your wholeness, your inner support, your sovereignty. Therefore, do not be afraid of the weight of your pain. It does not prove your insignificance. It merely precisely indicates the amount of lead your soul has given you to transform into pure, shining gold. And this alchemical transformation begins not in retorts and flasks, but on the clean pages of your diary, in the silence of your own consciousness. Now let's return to the 5 phrases we started with. It is important to understand, they are not spells you utter to enchant a man. They are the natural, organic result of your inner transformation. They are the smoke that inevitably appears when the fire of self-worth is kindled within you. Trying to use them without inner work is like trying to start a luxury car without an engine. You can sit in the beautiful interior, press the pedals, turn the steering wheel, but the car will not move because there is no power source. The engine is your inner, unconditional right to your shadow. It is your permission to yourself to be inconvenient, angry, selfish, direct. It is your decision to take back all those parts that you once deemed bad. And you can start this engine in only one way, through an honest, ruthless dialogue with yourself. Before your voice gains strength in the outside world, it must ring out without fear or censorship in the inner world. Therefore, here is your first practical assignment. Start keeping a diary, not for beautiful thoughts, but for honest ones. Every evening, ask your inner bad girl, your shadow, these questions, and write down the answers without editing. What are you really afraid of? What do you want so badly that you are even afraid to admit it to yourself? What are you deathly tired of? What genuinely angers you? What are you furious about? Allow her to speak. Allow her to curse, scream, complain, demand. Do not judge. Do not correct. Do not tell her, you can't do that. Just listen. Be for her the one person in the whole world who is finally ready to hear her truth. This is the beginning of integration. This is the first time the queen steps down from her throne and goes into the dark forest not to wage war, but to listen. And it is from this dialogue, from this sacred listening, that genuine power is born. And when you start this inner dialogue, your external language will inevitably begin to change. It will become simpler, more honest, and immeasurably stronger. Let's look at the 5 markers of this new language. 5 phrases that are not weapons, but a compass pointing to your recovered wholeness. First, the boundary phrase. That doesn't work for me. This is not aggression or wounded silence. It is a calm, almost unemotional statement of fact. It is born from a deep inner understanding that your comfort, your values, and your time are just as important as his. A good girl either silently endures or explodes. A whole woman simply informs. This phrase is not a wall you build, but a boundary stone you calmly set on the border of your sovereign kingdom. It is the language of self-respect. Second, the desire phrase, I want, instead of, maybe we could. A good girl always asks permission for her desires, masking them as timid suggestions. A whole woman declares her will. This doesn't mean she isn't open to dialogue, but she starts it with an honest declaration of her need. This phrase is born from direct contact with your true desires, and not from an attempt to guess his or offer a compromise that is actually a sacrifice. It is the language of life force. The living always wants something. Third, the opinion phrase, I think differently. This is not a challenge to an argument or an attempt to prove your point. It is a calm affirmation of your right to your own view of the world. A good girl fears disagreements because they threaten fusion. A whole woman understands that intimacy is only possible between 2 separate individuals. This phrase is born from your intellectual autonomy, from the understanding that your picture of the world does not have to be a copy of his. It is the language of personality. A function has no opinion, a person does. Fourth, the self-sufficiency phrase, thanks, I can handle it myself. This is not a refusal of help out of pride. It is a demonstration of your competence and strength in the areas where you are truly competent and strong. A good girl often simulates weakness to allow the man to feel strong. A whole woman is not afraid of her strength and does not use it for humiliation, but simply possesses it. This phrase is born from self-belief and faith in your abilities, free from the infantile need to be rescued. It is the language of sovereignty. Fifth, the consequence phrase. If you continue to do that, I will be forced to do this. This is the most complex and most powerful phrase. It is not an ultimatum or blackmail. It is an honest adult informing about the consequences of violating your boundaries. It says, I respect your freedom to act as you wish, but I also respect myself and will protect my integrity. It is the language of power, not tyranny, but genuine adult power over your own life. And when these phrases become not memorized lines, but a natural extension of your essence, you will understand the main truth of this path. Understand the main thing. Your task is not to break him. Your task is to become so whole, so unshakable in your self-worth, so deeply connected to your power and your shadow, that your very presence becomes a standard. The standard of respect, honesty, and depth. Only a man who is ready to see in you not a function, not an object for convenience, but an equal, strong, sometimes inconvenient, but always living and real woman can stay next to such a woman. Not a mommy who will close her eyes to his immaturity, but a queen who rules her kingdom and invites him to become a king next to her. And here is where the magic happens. You don't break him. You create a standard that he will have to grow up to or leave. You stop being soil that can be trampled and you become a mountain that can either be climbed or bypassed. And there is no tragedy in this. If he grows up, you will find a king worthy of a queen next to you. If he leaves, he will only free the throne next to you for the one who already is. In either outcome, you win. Because the main prize in this game is not him. The main prize is yourself, having reclaimed your kingdom. You stop being a question he can answer yes or no. You become an assertion, a fact, a reality. And with this reality, he will either have to contend or disappear from your gravitational field. Let's pause for a moment on the peak we have climbed and look at the path traveled. We started with a tactical question, 5 phrases to make him chase you, and we arrived at the great strategic idea of wholeness. You were looking for the keys to his heart, and you found the keys to your own kingdom. And it turned out that those are the only keys you ever needed. And here is the main insight these keys reveal. True attractiveness is not a set of techniques. It is not a game or manipulation. It is the scent of your soul that is not afraid of its dark forests. It is the light you radiate when you stop hiding your shadow and allow it to become your power. It is the inner music that begins to play when you embrace your entire orchestra, both the violins and the drums. Because men ultimately don't chase bad girls, they chase living women. And life is not only light, life is fullness. It is both light and shadow. It is your kindness and your rage, your ability to forgive and your ability to say never, your warmth and your ice. To be alive means to be all of this at once, without apologizing for any of your parts. Therefore, if you want to take away only one thought from our entire hour-long journey, let it be this. Stop being accommodating. Start being alive. And this idea is not just beautiful philosophy. It is a seed. And if you allow it to sprout, your tomorrow will no longer look like yesterday. Imagine this day. You wake up and the first thought that comes into your head is not, what will he think, or will I offend him? But a quiet, clear, and unrequiring question. What do I want today? You walk down the street and your gait is different, lighter, more confident, because you are no longer carrying the invisible, yet crushing weight of someone else's expectations on your shoulders. You say no without a long aftertaste of guilt, because you understand your no to others is the loudest and purest yes to yourself. You say yes to your desires without fear of seeming selfish, because you know that a woman devoid of desires is not a saint, but a dead woman. It won't happen overnight. There will be setbacks. There will be doubts. Old habits will cling to you. But the journey you started today, the very act of acknowledging your shadow, has already changed the trajectory, and it will inevitably lead you to this point, to the point of your true, calm, and unbreakable power. And before we finish, I want to thank you. Thank you for walking this path with me to the very end. Thank you for trusting me to guide you through these dark, yet sacred paths of your soul. It requires true courage, that quiet, inner courage that no one sees, to look into your shadow instead of running away from it. And you should know, you didn't just watch a video. You performed an act of introspection. You took a deep, important step toward yourself. And by taking this step, you stop being a lonely spectator. Now you are part of a community of those who seek not approval, but truth. Those who are tired of superficial answers and crave depth. Those who build their lives not on the shifting sands of others' opinions, but on the unshakable rock of their own soul. You are not alone in this search. Welcome home. If this journey inward was valuable to you and you feel that it has only just begun, subscribe to this channel. This is not just a subscription. It is your decision to choose the path of depth over superficiality. Here we do not give simple answers, but we seek deep meanings together. We do not offer band-aids. We learn together how to perform surgical operations on the soul to get to the source of healing. Click the bell icon so you don't miss our next immersion. Every video is another step into the unexplored territories of the psyche, another map for your inner journey. And if during this conversation you thought of a woman, a friend, a sister, a mother who you feel vitally needs to hear these words, please share this video with her. Sometimes we cannot save ourselves, but we can become the one who lights the path for another person. Be that light, and remember, do not be afraid of your shadow. It is there, in its deepest darkness, that your gold is hidden.